Welcome to Mintel's Little Conversation, which is real conversations with actionable insights into what consumers want and why. I'm Lynn Dornblaser, Director of Innovation and Insight at Mintel, and today we're discussing mood and cognition. I'm joined by Stephanie Mattucci, who's one of the directors on our food and drink platform and is also a certified food scientist. Welcome, Steph.
Hi, Lynn. Thanks for having me.
So, mood and cognition. Well, it feels like this is a topic we've been talking about for a really long time. Of course, during the pandemic, but it feels like even before that. What we're talking about is the products and the ingredients behind those products that help elevate mood, help you feel calmer, help you feel more energized, improve brain health, improve cognition, and reduce stress. That's a lot of different things to talk about, but really big picture, that's our subject today. Why now? Why is it important now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's definitely been an area of health that's been starting to get some more traction. Even before the pandemic, we started talking about the importance of mental health. But with the pandemic and all of the effects that had on our physical and mental health, it really brought this issue top of mind for so many people struggling with this, looking for help for maybe the first time, and finding support in that area. And I think even though we've been talking about it, the pandemic has been 3 years since it started, almost 3.5, 4 years, right, Lynn? So these issues, though, haven't gone away. I mean, these are still big issues that people are facing. And now that we're talking about it, I don't think we're going to stop.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Does it feel like it just takes companies a little while to get products out onto the market or figure out what it is that they should be doing?
Well, that too. It's the product side, but also, we may be talking about it, but when it comes to something like mental health and brain health and supporting that, there's lots of areas where people can turn for support. It could be with a therapist, with other behavioral activities. Food and drink is one of those newer areas, though, when we're talking about supporting it. And it's interesting, if you think about, we eat a lot of food, right, to support our health. We eat it for a healthy heart, a healthy bones. You see all those claims. But when you talk about your brain, we don't really think about what we need to eat for that. If it's kind of disassociated, anything above your neck is not really something we think about because you're not looking at it, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Not something you feel like you have to feed in some way. Yeah.
Right, right. But we're starting to talk about that more and looking at, the foods to eat, the nutrients to really focus on to support a healthy brain. And with that goes into supporting mood and cognitive health too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what are some of those ingredients?
Really one of the big ones is antioxidants. That's huge for all health, but also brain health. Specifically, some other nutrients out there, things like B vitamins are great. One of the other things I wanted to mention, Lynn, is that, when we're talking about this, like your brain is what makes you who you are. It's responsible for your mood and your thoughts and your actions. So it can be a little bit scary to think about trying something that might alter that. I mean, some people may do that recreationally and be fine with that. But on a day-to-day functioning basis, you might not want to be tampering with that when you need to be at your best at work and things like that.
Right. No kidding. Yeah. So I assume then that leads to some consumer concern or consumer pushback in terms of accepting these kinds of products.
Exactly. So I think there's a whole range of things out there that you can look at in terms of developing in that space. You can start with some of those more familiar, trustworthy ingredients or nutrients, things like B vitamins that are proven to support, mental health and cognition and energy and things like that. And then you can go more onto the newer fringy side, things like adaptogens, which help your body cope with stress and can also boost that energy and mental clarity.
Do consumers even know what adaptogens are?
A few of them do.
Okay.
So right now, when we ask consumers about their engagement with foods, functional food and drinks that have things, for adaptogens, only 7% of U.S. consumers are currently eating food and drink products with adaptogens. So it's pretty low at this time, but I do think the interest in looking for ways to have those functional benefits and reduce stress will give these a lot of potential. And it may be more in the supplement side of things when you're looking for something with more efficacy. But that doesn't mean that there aren't options for things like that to emerge in some more functional food and drink spaces, especially the beverages. That's where we're seeing a lot of the activity when it comes to adaptogens.
Well, I mean, since you and I have talked about this and I've seen you talk about adaptogens and I've talked about adaptogens, I've got a kind of a handle on what those are, but I bet a lot of people listening are thinking adapto what now? Or they're just not sure what adaptogens are. So talk a little bit about what those things are.
Yep. So adaptogens, simply put, they're a group of herbal substances that are known to promote balance within the body and help you cope with stress. So there's a variety out there, and depending on who you're talking to and what definition you're going to find, it's not like there is a set definition for an adaptogen. There's not a regulatory guideline on that, but some of the top ones that are in play right now would be something like ashwagandha. So that's also known as Indian ginseng. It's used in Ayurvedic medicine. Really common there. I think that does have some approved health benefits in some markets, so related to stress reduction, and has been really well studied, some of the specific varietals of that. And then there's also holy basil, which is another one that I see a lot in products. Also goes by the name tulsi in Ayurvedic medicine. A lot of stress relief. That's the whole point of adaptogens, is coping with stress, but also having that positive effect on memory and cognitive function. So that's another interesting one to look at, especially through the healthy aging lens. And then let's see the other one. Maca is another big one for energy, other ginsengs. Yep. So those would be some of the big ones.
So it sounds like then, thinking globally, even though you and I are based out of Mintel's Chicago office, thinking globally, it sounds like some of these adaptogens are better known in certain parts of the world and commonly used in certain parts of the world.
Yes, some of them are rooted in traditional medicine. Shisandra is another one that's rooted in traditional Chinese medicine. So there's a lot we can learn from these areas of health and how that can help us in day-to-day life from other cultures. So
one of the things that you alluded to when you were talking about some of the adaptogens is the lack of regulatory guidance on many of these. Is that a challenge then for companies if they're thinking about formulating with these products? What do they need to watch out for?
Yeah, I think that's certainly going to be dependent on the market that you're in and what you're allowed to include or not include. And that's going to vary. And I'm not going to go into a whole regulatory discussion too. But there's also formulation challenges too in terms of the taste. Some, herbal ingredients have very bitter off notes and things like that. So that's also a challenge too when incorporating into like a functional food or drink product, which is one of the reasons why I think supplements is going to be where you see more of that activity versus food and drink space. But, if we go back to the conversation about how can we help people support their brains? What can we do? There's a lot of options there beyond just the adaptogens. So, the B vitamins I mentioned, choline is another one that I think is really exciting. Choline is a nutrient that most of us do not get enough. In fact, 90% of Americans aren't meeting the adequate intake for choline. So it's definitely something that we need to have more of. A lot of the activity right now is just in baby food, prenatal vitamins, which that's increased a lot in the last 4 years, which has been great to see that. But in terms of it's a nutrient that can benefit throughout the lifespan. So, I think that's another one that could be looked at as well. That might be a little bit safer in terms of perception of use, just because it's something we do need.
So what, for the non-food scientists in the group like me, what does choline do and where do you get it? How do you get it?
Yeah, so choline, it's an essential nutrient. It helps create the neurotransmitter acetylcholine. It plays a really crucial role in nerve conduction and cognitive functions such as memory, and it supports it converts into other compounds that supports other systems too, like liver health. So in the diet, choline, a lot of fruits and vegetables, leafy, dark leafy greens, things like eggs, also really good sources of choline in the diet. But a lot of people aren't getting enough, as I mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we certainly do know that consumers don't get enough vegetables. They don't get enough leafy greens, all of that. Mm-hmm. But it feels like one thing that they do get enough of, at least certainly in my house, but I think something that we do get enough of, which has its downsides, but factors into our topic today, is caffeine.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's a great one. And I think there's a whole range of caffeine ingredients, alternative sources of caffeine too, that are emerging that can be a familiar ingredient. I mean, it's probably the number one thing people go to for an energy boost, right? Or a mental boost, at least for me anyway. And our research shows that. We know that about 55% of consumers say they currently eat or drink a food or drink product with caffeine, and 83% of those are having caffeine at least once per day.
Exactly.
But with caffeine, I mean, not everyone tolerates it the same way, right, Lynn? So there was a while ago, they had a lot of those DNA tests. I don't know if you took any of those DNA diet tests and kind of seen what your tolerances to various things. And at the time, it was almost like a fortune teller, kind of telling you things about yourself that you already know a little bit about. But one of those elements was things like a caffeine. And I have a friend who took the same test, and I came back. I could have all the caffeine I wanted, basically, and my friend, very low caffeine tolerance. And, we already knew that about ourselves, but I think that just opens the door to really go, okay, we need to make products out there that are going to suit people, whatever their spectrum is on the range of tolerance for something like caffeine, and really for anything else. I mean, when we're talking about personalization, it's that ability to dial into what your body needs for you at that time.
Yeah. I was going to say that links to the quagmire that companies really have to watch out for, and that is talking about efficacy, because it feels like with these types of ingredients, it's not the same as with other things that you might eat with other functional benefits, because of those personal tolerances and your own makeup and what your body can handle. So that also has to be a huge challenge for companies.
Absolutely. And with something like caffeine, I mean, I do think that is a substance that is familiar enough to people in terms of how they tolerate it. So what I've been seeing is with some of the newer alternative sources of caffeine, so things like yapine holly, guayusa, yerba mate, products using those ingredients, talking about how much caffeine they have per serving in the context of a cup of coffee, relating it to it has 1 cup of coffee or it's this many milligrams, but making that connection. And of course, there are variations in how you brew your coffee and how much caffeine is in it. But in general, you have a sense of how much you can tolerate, 1 cup, 2 cups, things like that, half a cup.
Are there other advantages to some of those alternate caffeine sources?
There are. Some of them are promoting the ability to give you some of that energy boost without the jittery side effects that caffeine can cause in some people.
Excellent.
So we're seeing that being talked about, or even different blends. So blending some of those adaptogens, as we talked about earlier, blending those with caffeine to kind of mellow that effect. I saw a really interesting mushroom coffee from South Africa that was blending different functional mushrooms with the caffeine there to reduce some of those jittery side effects.
I had the opportunity at a client event to see and taste one of those mushroom coffees.
What did you think?
Well, I'm someone who puts milk in my coffee, and to my mind, it really needed that, because it did have some funky, it didn't taste like mushroom, but it had some earthy, funky flavor components to it that were very different from coffee. But it did garner a lot of interest, because the overwhelming statement was, this tastes way better than I thought it was going to. So
interesting. Well, when you said you add milk to your coffee, was it kind of bitter?
Yes,
the mushroom coffee. So that's when you're adding milk to your coffee, you're actually helping reduce that bitterness, and it just naturally. So that would definitely be interesting to try that in the mushroom coffee too.
But
especially if you're a person who's more sensitive to bitter taste. That's about like a quarter of the population there. So
Okay.
There's range to accommodate them as well.
Cool. So that leads me to think about something that I know I talk about all the time about innovation and about new products and new ingredients and functionality, especially. And that is, all of these things are important, but they're not the most important thing. The most important thing.
It's gotta taste good.
Gotta taste good. It's gotta taste good. What kinds of formulation challenges are there then with some of these ingredients for mood and cognition?
Yep, I would say that bitterness is certainly part of that for any of those herbal ingredients and bringing those in. And then at the same time, balancing that with the continued pressure on sugar reduction and how that works out, blending and having those synergies with products, but not having them too sugary. That is being also looked at for health too. So
that seems like one of a wide range of challenges that companies have to face when they're thinking about formulating for mood and cognition. What should companies do to reassure consumers about the ingredients and not about their safety or their efficacy so much, but that these are products that are something that they need to think about and that it's okay to try them?
Well, I think first we need to get people to start thinking. It's kind of a couple steps there, right? So first we have to get that association between what you eat affecting your brain. We do see that has been moving. People are associating that. They're looking for a healthy diet to support a healthy brain. I think it's about 40% of U.S. consumers right now interested in a diet that's going to maintain their brain function. So it'd be nice to see that a little bit higher to get involved with, as I was mentioning earlier, what you need to eat for a healthy brain. But then breaking it down to what specifically that is, what the benefits are. So it's kind of first that awareness and then dialing it into the specifics. So in general, starting off with kind of those bigger picture things for supporting overall brain health. Right.
And then maybe to the point that you made in the very beginning is starting with the easy things, like that consumers understand, like antioxidants and B vitamins.
Yeah, and even going, a step further back to the actual fruits that are, blueberries are usually that top fruit that's being associated with cognitive health and, associated with reducing dementia risk and things like that. So, blueberries definitely a good brain food there, but other berries as well. I'm not trying to exclude other berries. Just
Are there companies that are doing some really interesting things or are forging a new path, maybe when it comes to talking about this?
Yep, I've seen a couple examples of products starting to talk about that on pack. So an interesting product from Dole with a smoothie kit that's talking about it's a berry spark, and it's talking about the connection there for functional or brain health there. So and I think things like that, really familiar ingredients. It has the blueberries and other berries there that are connecting to brain health in a very familiar way, can get consumers to start to think about this idea and start about thinking about eating for their brain. There's a couple other products out there too that are doing that, but in a really tangible, accessible way, with things that they're already eating, and then starting to increase that awareness.
That's a product from Dole that actually answers one of my questions, but I would like you to talk about it a little bit. And that is, I was going to ask, is this whole idea of brain health and cognitive health, is it just for niche companies? And it isn't, is it?
No, I think there is such a big space in terms of the needs to meet, from everything from just supporting general good brain health with good nutrients to, going on the other side of all the things that affect your brain, sleep, stress, all of those other areas. You can go from the familiar ingredients, you can go to the more niche ingredients, things like adaptogens. There's a lot of room there for people to play no matter where they are in this space, for sure.
It feels like companies can look a lot of different places for inspiration. One of the things that popped into my head as we were talking is how we see a lot of focus word intended, with supplements and beverages specifically for gamers that focus on focus, that they're all about maintaining focus, elevating focus, that sort of thing. And so it feels like that area of products that are very niche, but geared to that important consumer segment globally could be an interesting area to look for inspiration. But are there other places that companies can look to get ideas as to what to do next?
Yeah, well, I think that just talking right then about the different segments that you're looking at, because this is such a big area and there's so many different facets that you could play into, you have to know who your consumer is and know what they're going to be looking for. It's going to be out of touch if you're talking about focus in a product that has nothing to do with that, and it just kind of will be jarring to see a brain health claim that doesn't connect. So understanding who's your consumer, what they're looking for in general, and how to dovetail that brain health into that. Even pairing up, kind of speaking more broadly to bigger, food or drink companies that aren't maybe in those niche segments, that idea of tying the physical and the mental health together. We see 50% of consumers would like a product that contributes to both their physical and mental health. And it's convenient that a lot of the brain health products or nutrients, do connect with heart health too. So there's a connection there between heart health and brain health because it's all connected with their vascular system, right? So it's that idea of supporting those healthy blood flow, really, and getting the blood to your brain. And there is a connection between heart health and brain health too. So sorry, I went on a little tangent there, but
that then makes me think of something else, because originally I was thinking this whole idea of mood and cognition and adaptogens and all of that feels relatively new, but it feels like it's very much something for younger consumers. But when you're talking about brain health and heart health and the connection there, it feels like then there's a huge potential market for like baby boomers who have all of a sudden discovered that they need to start paying attention to these things.
Absolutely. They're very connected. And I think it really looks to, just even that conversation about talking about this, it looks at how we're looking at health differently. We're not necessarily looking at it in silos and in specific disciplines. Like, this is just what I have to eat this for my heart. I have to eat this for my bones. It's more of what can I do to be overall healthy and feel my best? And that means the physical health and the mental health.
Yep. I've also seen some of our data. I'm not going to get it exactly right, probably, but I've seen some of our data that indicates that even the youngest consumers, so Gen Z, consumers in their early 20s, are also focused big picture on, of course, their overall well-being, but things like heart health. And they're looking to the future. They're looking to optimize their health today to set them up well for the future. So that, to me...
Yeah, and that generation...
Go ahead.
More connected to with mental health and awareness and talking about these issues, understanding that it is part of your overall health. So I think that, if you look at those consumers as they grow up, this is going to just be a part of life. It's not going to be a new or kind of alarming thing to talk about that.
So what would you predict then is ahead when it comes to mood and cognition and all of those ingredients?
Yeah, I'd love to see, more talking about ways to support brain health and having people engaged with that and not be turned off by perhaps some of the disassociation, avoiding that disassociation between your brain and the rest of your body. So I'm looking forward to that, seeing people really look at health more holistically and incorporating that. I do think brands should be cautioned not to go too far, right? You're not going to solve everyone's problems with one magic product or one magic beverage, and understanding that it's part of a whole system that you're playing into and supporting those different specific needs depending on what formulation you're really working towards. Maybe it's stress relief, maybe it's a mood boosting, maybe it's a boost of energy with a different source of caffeine. So, recognizing the strengths there and also where you're not playing it. Try not to solve every need for every person.
Any last comments that you want to make sure you talk about when it comes to this subject?
The other area is just, really stress. I don't know if I mentioned that enough, but that idea of stress tying into that and looking at ways to support that management, because that really is really important for mental health, and especially when we're talking about younger consumers too. That's one of the bigger areas, is that stress and burnout and how that supports that. And really just staying open and eating all of your good fruits and vegetables, everybody.
Well, that's extremely sound advice that all of us should be following. But when we don't eat all of our fruits and vegetables, especially all of those that help us feel better in every sense of that, then we've got some other things some other products that we can lean on that help get us over the hump.
Absolutely. Yep.
Great. Well, Stephanie, I have to say, as always, this has been really informative. So just a tiny bit of a recap for everyone who's listening in today. I think some of the big takeaways here are companies really do need to keep an eye on the big overall picture regarding mood, cognition, stress, and those ingredients and the kinds of products that are appropriate to help address some of those issues. But what's also really important is clear, straightforward communication. Not many consumers know what an adaptogen is, so explain it to them. I think it's as simple and as straightforward as that. And I think the one thing that really stands out to me is that there's room in the marketplace for big companies, little companies, and consumer targets span all ages, because everybody is interested in boosting mood, reducing stress, and improving their brain health, even if they don't quite understand exactly what they should do or exactly what that means. So thank you, everyone, for listening. But the conversation doesn't end here. Head on over to Mintel's LinkedIn and Instagram and let us know what you think. We'd love to hear your thoughts about what we've been talking about today regarding mood and cognition. If you want to know more about Mintel, visit Mintel.com and sign up to become a member of the free Mintel Spotlight community. Make sure you never miss an episode. Subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever it is you get your podcasts. Goodbye for now, and we'll catch you next time for a new episode of Little Conversation.